Well, thank you all for coming back to the Youth Bombs program. I am your host here today, Tim Martin, and this is
Tomas Mosquera.
And Thomas and I are going to talk about quite a few different things today. Lots happening in the news, so we'll just kind of get right into it and bring that mic. Get yourself a little bit closer to that microphone, Tomas. So, obviously, the big thing in the news today is the U.S. attacks on Iran. So, just out of the gate, kind of give me your assessment of what's going on.
Well, of course, we all know that Iran having nuclear arms, it's pretty complicated, but still, I believe that the decision made by Donald Trump to bomb these nuclear sites, it's a wrong decision. It's complicated because first, we understand that the main reason is the fight between Israel and Iran, and that's not our war. That's not our fight. And we keep getting pulled into these situations, which at the end not only cost us money, but there's international turmoil of what we do when we get into these fights and wars that are, at the end of the day, they're not ours.
So the premise that we are being told is that the Iranians were on the brink of getting a nuclear warhead. So that's sort of been couched or framed as the justification of what we're doing, and Trump is taking preemptive strikes here against Iran. Are you buying that? What is your spidey senses telling you about that?
Well, as I said, there are these rumors in the news that Iran has been building and getting these nuclear weapons, but still, I believe that in one moment in history, we have to get past like bombing other countries or attacking other people because they're doing something that we do not want them to do. Probably we should look for a way of a diplomatic solution, sitting down with, and I know it's complicated, speaking with the Ayatollah and everything, but we have seen situations in the past where American leaders sit down with pretty complicated people. And
Well, and we are led to believe that there were some negotiations that were happening. Do you think that those, for instance, were even in good faith, or do you think that this was sort of a predetermined outcome and they were just potentially having these negotiations so that they could tell the American people that they were having them, despite the fact that maybe the U.S. government wasn't as genuine as we would like them maybe to believe, or we're led to believe?
Yeah, I really don't know if they were having those negotiations. Probably they wanted, as you said, to show the American people that we were looking for a way to find a diplomatic solution. But at the end of the day, we keep doing the same that we have been doing for 80 years.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that you're a big supporter of President Trump. I'm a supporter of his as well. I mean, I posted earlier on our Alachua Republicans Facebook page that I do support him. I just happen to disagree with what he is doing here, and that's one of the great things I think about the Republican Party, particularly here locally, is we can have disagreements. We're still going to be friends. We don't have to agree on every issue. We're not this big, monolith. And I know we get painted in pictures as we just have to be the lapdog for the president. We have to do and go along with everything that the Republican Party of Florida does and the Alachua County Republican Executive Committee does. But that's really not the case. Not really the case at all. And I think that having that debate, it's sort of the iron sharpens iron sort of thing. We need to be able to self-criticize, I think, or self-critique when we have these sorts of things come up. One of the big questions that's been really popular online, particularly and in the news, is this Article 1 versus Article 2 of the Constitution. You have Congress's responsibilities, you have the president's responsibilities, and then you have this War Powers Act that kind of goes in between. Have you read up on both the articles of the Constitution as well as the War Powers Act, and do you have an opinion about that?
Not really. What I do have an opinion on is what you were saying about how people believe that in the Republican Party what we do is just like Trump is our God and everything he does is great. And no, it's
we're supposed to be idol worshipers tomorrow.
Yeah, we're supposed to be worshipers of Trump and his administration. But no, it's the Republican Party is a space where even though if we support a candidate or a president like Donald Trump, he's not perfect. None of them are. Right. And whenever he has a mistake or whatever we believe he is doing wrong, we can speak out and have our differences and still be friends.
And that debate is what's supposed to happen in Congress.
Yeah.
In the decision process for going to war, the debate is supposed to happen in Congress. And we were saying before, we got on the microphone how we can't have this decision made in the Situation Room, and the only people in the room are the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Because they have a little bit of a motivation,
Of course.
to go to war. And, I think it's also reasonable to say that we both sit here without the information that the president has as well. So that's sort of through that lens as well. But my argument there is, again, all the more reason to have the debate in Congress. And people talk about strategic, and we can't disclose to the enemy. I mean, come on. I mean, with today's world where we're technologically connected, 24/7. People are tweeting. Not a whole heck of a lot's a secret necessarily,
No.
in my opinion. So, you can have the debate in Congress without disclosing a strategic, information or plan or any of that stuff. So I think that argument's kind of bunk, quite frankly. But let's kind of move past the discussion of the day and look at so the framing again was Iran's on the brink of a nuclear warhead.
Yeah.
Netanyahu has been claiming that Iran is 1 to 3 years away from nuclear weapons since 1991. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah.
We're going on over 30 years now at this point, and that's just ludicrous. Even in one of the interviews just last week, he said that, there's still at least a year or so out. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were saying how it's one thing to have a nuclear warhead. It's another thing to be able to deliver it.
Yeah.
Put it on a missile. You don't just make it, throw it on a missile, and fire that sucker
you
off.
have to have a whole...
You look at what North Korea has been doing for years. They can barely get their act together over there. Arguably, Iran's not any more technologically advanced than North Korea.
No.
So it all begs the question of the timing, I think, here. And I think... And I would totally agree with the president if there was this imminent threat. I have not been convinced that there's an imminent threat. What do you think?
Well,
do you think there's an imminent threat, or was an imminent threat?
Not yet. As what you were saying, I've got into politics around 10 years ago, and since I got into politics, there's been this thing that Iran is a threat. Iran is a threat. They're this close to obtaining nuclear warheads. And it has never happened. And what you said is great. You have the nuclear warheads, but can you deliver them? Do you have the technologies and the equipment to deliver? You can have the missiles, you can have the warheads, but do you have the equipment and the strength to deliver those warheads? Same thing goes in North Korea. They probably have, I don't know, a lot of nuclear weapons, but the thing is, can they deliver them? So is Iran an imminent threat? They could be, and we've been saying this for a long time, but they could be, they could not be. We just have to wait and see their response.
So I just looked up the distance from D.C. to Iran, and it's approximately 6,300 miles. Iran does not have a single weapon that can reach 6,300 miles.
No.
I don't believe that they probably have much of a submarine force to be able to put them on a sub and sneak them over here.
Yeah.
How much could Iran possibly do that would surprise the U.S., you think?
I don't know, honestly, and I don't think they would be that dumb to plan an attack on American soil.
So let's look at something else, and this is where I was kind of going with that, looking beyond today and beyond these attacks, because now you have the head of the Security Council for Moscow. I just heard on my way over here to the studio that Moscow is willing to give the Iranians nuclear weapons, which is pretty jarring from a statement standpoint. But if Iran was a year or more away from nuclear weapons 2 days ago, we have accelerated that with this attack.
Yeah.
That argument could be made. I don't know if that is the argument that I would make necessarily, but that argument I think could be made. So we have potentially accelerated their problem. And it also adds a whole element of Russia into this. And we know the military-industrial complex always has to have an enemy for us to be scared of, to justify making more bullets, making more planes, and all that stuff. And I'm an anti-war guy. I don't think this is really the way to go. Our government has lied to us before and gotten us into war pretty regularly in our history. So there's a lot more that needs to go into this to really kind of justify it in my head. And again, that is the reason to have the debate in Congress at the end of the day. But where do you see things kind of going from here?
Well, hopefully things go the way Donald Trump said last night, that after this attack, Iran sees that it's not the right way to go to keep their process of creating these nuclear warheads or having this, like, taunting the U.S., what they have been doing for not only since they began this little conflict with Israel in recent time, but it's been going for a long time. They've been taunting the U.S. a lot. So maybe this is a little test of what we can deliver to them.
And that would arguably be a victory, I suppose, right?
It would. Preventing any type of war is a victory, not only for the United States of America, but for our enemies and for the whole world, because we do not want war. I remember, I don't know, a month and a half ago, gas prices were going down, and now they're up again. Because
I'm sure they're going to be up again.
Yeah, and they're going to be going up if we continue with this conflict. So it does not only affect our army, or their people. It also affects the common American.
So when Trump came out last night to the podium, there was the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Vice President J.D. Vance were there. So it was those four men. Who was not there was the Secretary Tulsi Gabbard. No. She is the Director of National Intelligence. She was not there. She recently said that the Iranians were not close to having any kind of nuclear weapons. And then I was reading that maybe she's claiming that she was taken out of context. I found it curious that she was not there. Did you?
I did. I was expecting her to be there because of her position, because of what she said. But she didn't show up. I don't know if it was.
Do you think she was uninvited?
Probably.
Do you think she was even in the discussion?
I don't know. If she was.
Yeah, I'm going to look that up while we're
discussion.
While we're talking. But just kind of continue while I'm trying to kind of looking this up here.
Yeah. So I honestly don't know if they probably knowing a little bit about Trump, his temperament. He probably said, no, you said this last time. We're not. Maybe not because he was on a personal level. Maybe it was to not attract the media that much, because the Democrats and national media, they would have taken that moment and she said this last time, and now she's over here with Trump after they bombed Iran, after she said that they were not a threat. And they would use that in their advantage to,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the reference here, and this is using Brave, the AI answer here. Take that for what it's worth, right? AI is kind of garbage in, garbage out sometimes. But it said, yes, Tulsi Gabbard was part of the Iran discussion as the Director of National Intelligence, providing assessments regarding Iran's nuclear program. She testified before Congress in March 2025, so maybe it wasn't a couple of weeks ago, but more like a couple of months ago, saying the U.S. intelligence community assessed that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon and that the Supreme Leader had not reauthorized the suspended nuclear weapons program from 2003. She, despite her testimony, Donald Trump publicly dismissed her assessment, asserting that Iran was close to obtaining a nuclear weapon and accusing her of being wrong. Gabbard attempted to clarify her position, stating that her earlier remarks were taken out of context and agreeing with Trump that Iran should not be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. That's sort of an answer that doesn't really speak to the question that was asked. Because, I think we could probably all agree that Iran shouldn't be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon program, but that's different than saying that they were close. Those are two different questions.
Two different,
yeah. So supposedly she was part of the discussion. It kind of goes on to say, as although Gabbard remained a vocal figure in the administration, reaffirmed support for Trump's actions regarding Iran, she was reportedly sidelined in internal discussions about the Iran-Israel conflict. Maybe she was part of the greater conversation, but not necessarily this strategic interplay conversation that was happening probably within the last, 24 hours, 48 hours or so. But do you see? We touched a little bit on Russia here and what their secretary has said. Do you think that actually happens? Do you think that this begs the question about whether or not we have kind of kicked a hornet's nest here? Russia gets ramped up, maybe China gets ramped up. We moved some of our strategic military assets out of the Pacific. Does that leave a window for China to go into Taiwan, which is supposedly the drumbeat there? What do you make of that?
We'll have to wait and see. I don't know if it's the best choice that they can make, the other side, Russia and or China, because Russia's been a little bit busy with Ukraine.
Sure.
All that.
Sure.
For a couple years now, so.
They've arguably been depleted.
Yeah.
They've been in this war going on. Are we into our third year? Are they into their third year now, or is it still second?
Yeah, it's the third year. It started in
my goodness, yeah,
first days of 2022. So, yeah, they've been depleted against Ukraine. If you have been depleted against Ukraine, would it be the best choice to get into a conflict against the United States and its allies?
That is interesting.
And with China also, again, for I don't know how long we've been talking about this kind of like Cold War with China.
Yeah.
But we have the trade and the amount of money that's between both countries. It would not allow for a conflict to begin between the United States and China. Probably a conflict on a table, like talking with the Chinese and the Americans, but not with guns, because that would break our economy and their economy and probably the world's economy.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm glad you said that, because I've thought that this supposed threat from China was a little bit of a red herring to a certain extent, because, like you said, they make all of our stuff.
Yeah.
And they make a lot of the components that go into our weapons.
They do.
So it's not like we can necessarily go to war with our own manufacturer unless we have some significant kind of backup plan.
Yeah, and they also depend on us, because if we don't buy from them, their economy, it will crash, because we are the biggest buyers of
they
China.
certainly have other customers, but
they do. But
we are such a consumer.
Yeah, we are their biggest consumer. So if we stop buying from them, or if we go into war with them, it's a lose-lose situation.
Right.
For both, and I would probably advocate for a diplomatic conflict, not one with weapons.
Gotcha. Well, cool. Very good. Good discussion. Let's turn our attention now to immigration. I'm sure people can hear you have a little bit of an accent. Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll kind of get into the immigration topic, which is something you want to talk about today.
Well, yeah, I was born in Colombia. I'm born to a Colombian father and an American mother. So thankfully, I'm also an American citizen. So I've seen firsthand the lives of these people that cross the U.S. border illegally. And of course, there's a lot that come into the United States. You have the Tren de Aragua and all those criminal organizations from Latin America that were crossing a lot during the Biden administration. They were crossing with drugs, they were doing human trafficking, especially children. Those types of people, those criminals that come into this country illegally and then start doing other crimes, those people, you got to get them kicked out immediately. Immediately.
Right.
But and we've seen the effects of in the economy and in business of people that, of course, they crossed the United States illegally. That's wrong. It's completely wrong. But they crossed it to have a better life for them, for their families. And at the end of the day, they're working in America, I know, illegally, but they're part of the American workforce. So for me, the better solution for those type of people, not the criminals, just get them out. For the people that cross the border illegally but are here working, probably help them obtain American citizenship. And at the end of the day, if you look at it from a business perspective, on an economic perspective, they'd become American taxpayers. So from their salaries that they're winning as Americans, we'd be taking a piece for
Right.
taxes.
This has got to be kind of a tough mental exercise for you, having one foot in both camps.
Yeah, well, of course, I advocate for border security completely. As I know, I've seen the people not only in Colombia but the whole Latin America. The quality of life that they have is not great. It's that so bad that they put themselves through the situation of crossing a river, an ocean, in small boats or even in tires with their babies, big families, so they can have a better life. But still, I understand that there's a lot of us Latinos, that come here to do wrong, come here to commit crimes, come here to try and disrespect the American culture, try to implement the culture that we have in Latin America and in the many countries in Latin America, and that's unacceptable.
So it hasn't always been that way.
No.
A lot of the immigrants that we hear about from, I guess our parents, our grandparents, they were excited to come to America. They wanted to be part of the culture. They wanted to learn the culture. They wanted to speak English. That's not necessarily the case today.
No.
And I want to be careful. I'm not saying that they wanted to leave their culture and their history behind, because I don't think that's the case at all.
No.
They wanted to just add on all that is what they saw as great in America.
Yeah.
But you're pointing out something that I think is important, that they're coming to sort of, and not the blanket brush, but they're coming to impose their culture on America. Am I?
Yeah, and it's not only the Latinos. You see the people from the Middle East that come here, people from Africa. I only take responsibility for Latinos. It's great that if you come here, that you have your culture in you. You keep practicing whatever things you do in your culture. Probably keep cooking certain types of foods or I don't know, certain types of events. It's okay, it's fine, but we have a culture here in the United States, and we've had it for a long time, and it's been pretty successful because we're the greatest nation on earth. So
Sure.
for you to come to our country and try to impose another culture, which I'm not saying it's wrong. Each culture has their good things and bad things. But this is our nation. It's not yours. It's not Colombia. It's not Venezuela. It's not Afghanistan. It's not Senegal.
And that's, I think that's sort of the backdrop for this conversation of what was going on with the LA riots. You have these people that are holding up American flags, poo-pooing, America and all this stuff about America, and then they're fighting going back to Mexico. That obviously just on the surface is kind of stupid and dumb.
Yeah.
But it kind of dovetails to what you're saying about they just want to come in here and make California Mexico, or make Texas Mexico, or make the greater America Mexico.
Yeah.
And so why are you here?
Exactly.
Why are you here?
Exactly.
Other than, I think if you wanted to get down to basics, it's you want your cake and eat it too. You want all the benefits of the America, but you don't want to participate. And I think that goes to really what the immigration process is all about.
Yeah.
Integration, vetting of people, determining who's a criminal from people who are actually going to benefit,
the U.S. economy,
the U.S. economy or the U.S. culture or something like that. And I hear the argument all the time about the immigration process just takes too long. But I also hear and kind of sympathize with the argument of, well, you don't flip on a switch and adapt a culture. That is something that happens over time.
It does.
So you can't have an immediate immigration process. It's not like buying a movie ticket. No, you've got to have the time to sort of get your foot wet and get embraced and get immersed. It's just like, you can't learn a language overnight.
No.
You have to learn all the mannerisms. You have to the undertones, the changes in the dialect and what they actually mean and all that stuff. So I'm not sure that I get too wound up about the immigration process taking too long from that aspect. But I've never had to go through it. Do you know people who have had to go through that process?
Yeah, I know people that have had to go to that process.
What do they say about it?
Thankfully, those are people that, first of all, they love the U.S. They love what this country offers for Americans and for people that want to become Americans. But they say it's a complicated process. Not only the legal part, but the adaptation is difficult. But when you have, as the majority of people have, like the grit to have a better life, it makes it easier for you instead of coming here and taking advantage of all the great things that this nation has to offer, but then desecrating our flag and talking bad about the U.S. and waving, a Mexican flag. It's okay if you're proud of being Mexican. I'm proud of being Colombian. I'm proud of being American too, but I'm not waving a Colombian flag and
burning a car.
Yeah, burning a car and burning the U.S. flag in the United States, and then no, you gotta go back to Colombia. No.
Complaining about the very provision and protection of the country that allows you to do that and to begin with is such a middle finger.
Yeah,
it really is just such a middle finger to the country and the people that were here. If it was easy to get, the value of it would be diminished.
Probably.
If getting an American citizenship was like getting a movie ticket, where's the sense of achievement?
Yeah, I believe that we Americans have a certain set of values in this nation.
Yeah.
Each one of us, we're all different, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a certain set of values that are instilled in every single one of us, that the people that want to become American, they should at least demonstrate a little bit of that, demonstrate a little bit of those values. And as you said, if it was that easy as just getting a movie ticket and you're American, then it would not be that sense of pride of becoming an American, of being an American.
Yeah, sort of a kind of a strange example, I suppose. But I follow Supercross, which is the kind of the professional motocross sports, and there's been two people associated with motocross, pretty big, substantial people who have recently gotten their American citizenship, and man. It almost brought a tear to my eye when they were talking about it, and it certainly did for them. Between their online posts and their online or your on-air interviews and things like that, and those are the kind of things that I sort of think about when I have this inner dialogue with myself about. Yes, it takes a while, but it is a sense of achievement. It really kind of also probably vets people. They're invested if they know it's going to take them a year to do it, or something like that. There's an argument there. There's a sense of something there, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. I just looked up immigration processing time. The immigration process in the United States can vary significantly in duration depending upon the type of application and other factors. So, for example, processing time for a Form I-140 was an immigration petition for an alien worker under regular processing is a little over 7 months, while premium processing takes 21 days. For family-based immigration, the median processing time for applications involving spouses, dependent children, and parents of U.S. citizens has increased from 4.7 months to 18.8 months between the year 2013 and 2023. I'm sure that's a factor of the number of people that are applying.
Of course.
I'm sure it's a factor of the government doesn't want to do anything quickly because they need job security. But trying not to be too cynical, It looks like it says, additionally, the total wait time for a green card often includes the visa bulletin waiting period plus the USCIS processing time, which can range from 18 to 24 months. So different things obviously take different times. I guess people need to put that in their filter when they hear, the immigration takes, X number of time, months to do or whatever. What one are you actually talking about? Let's define our terms before we sort of start having these discussions. But it's interesting times. I have sort of felt that politics is downstream from immigration, right? So if you, let's say you are, part of the globalist camp and you want to undermine the culture of America, you flood America with a bunch of people who can't stand America, want to see it undermined as well, and you flood the zone, like we do in football. You flood the zone, and then you get different politics downstream from that. I think there's a significant part of that going on. Have you ever heard that? Have you thought of anything like that?
Yeah, I completely agree. You get a bunch of people that undermine the United States, that want the United States gone, basically, or at least lose all its power, its influential economic, military power.
And when I say globalists, I'm talking about the people at the United Nations.
Oh, yeah.
I come from a background, an intellectual background of, the UN is the global government and they just want to control everything. Yeah. The U.S. is an extremely significant impediment to them being able to do that.
Yeah.
We saw what happened in Germany. We saw all across Europe when you had the UN promoting this immigration policy, and it's part of I think there's 17 goals for sustainability. You can look that up online.
Even Keir Starmer said it. It's immigration is not.
Say that again.
Keir Starmer said it.
Okay.
The UK Prime Minister.
Okay.
He said it about immigration, about the immigration issue in Europe. He said, "This is not just happening because it's happening. This is planned." And he's in favor of immigration. He's from Reform Party, and he said it. This is planned.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was in London just a couple of years ago, and I've told this story before. Our family, we were in a restaurant, and we came out of the restaurant, and there were two motorcycle cops that pulled up kind of right in front of us. We were right in, I think it's Piccadilly Square, and before we went into the restaurant, I heard a helicopter overhead, and I had heard earlier in the day that the king was in town, or he was coming into town. So I heard the helicopter overhead before we went into the restaurant. I thought, okay, maybe that's Overwatch. We come out. Sure enough, these two motorcycle cops pull up and block the intersection. And I thought, oh, wow, hey, check it out. Maybe this is the King's Motorcade, and they're doing kind of advanced security or something like that. Let's stick around and see what happens. Well, I'll be darned if about 3 or 4 minutes later, around the corner comes this, I kid you not, Tomas, it was probably 10,000 people in a communist parade, talking about, chanting about immigration, say it loud, say it clear, refugees are welcome here, all with the communist fist pump. I've showed pictures of this at the REC meetings before, but just the chanting and, it was all incredible. There was a guy in the audience actually that was kind of working the crowd, so to speak, as the parade was moving along. I kind of saw this guy from a distance, and he was kind of paralleling the parade as it came down through the street. And you're in between buildings. Buildings are like this, so everything is like it's deafening, even with the loud, because they always get their loud bullhorns and all that. All
they
that
like
garbage.
to be loud.
And so I'm watching this guy. He's coming through the crowd, parallel with the parade, but not in the parade. He's just in the crowd on the sidewalk, and he's handing out the Workers' World newspaper. And he says, "Oh, you want one of these, newspapers?" And I look at it, and I said, "Oh, that's one of the communist newspapers." And he kind of snapped back, because I guess he didn't think anybody knew what he was doing. And he said, "Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, you're one of those people, and I guess you're going to tell me that Russia and China are communist." And I said, "Buddy," I said, "they're in the name. They're in the name. Don't tell me that I should ignore my lying eyes, right? Don't tell me that." And So he kind of wanted to kind of get into a little bit of a heated discussion, and I said, you just need to get your prescription checked, because he was wearing glasses. And our son was actually standing behind me, and I'm about 5'10" probably now. Our son's 6'2", and he says, look, man, you don't want to get into an argument with my dad about communism. And he just kind of threw up his hands and kept on walking. But all the signage was the same. It's the red, the black, the gold, the communist fist. What is it? Coalitionworkers.org, socialistworkers.org. So those are the puppet masters of this stuff. And believe me when I tell you, the globalists use the communists like they use the constitutionalists, like they use the liberals, like they use the Republicans, like they use the Libertarian Party. Yeah. They are more than willing and more than able to take elements of every one of those things to move their agenda forward.
Yeah.
End of story. But that communist parade, it was virtually sanctioned, or at least condoned, by the London police, because, like I said, they were getting a police escort, and there were people walking along the. I don't know if you've seen this before. They do it at Disney, where they have people with a rope, and they kind of advance the parade with the rope, so people can't cross the road. Yeah, and it kind of keeps people on the sidewalks. But you wanted to jump in here? Yeah,
it's if you want to protest for communism or do a parade for communism, it's okay. You're free to do it, but just know what you're protesting for, because most of these people, you see a lot of videos in the United States, in the UK, in some countries in Europe, in Latin America, they go and interview people that are protesting. These situations are mostly in those left socialist communist parades, protests.
Sure.
They go and ask them, what are you protesting for? What issues do you stand against, or what issues do you stand for? And they don't know anything.
Yeah, that's a great point. Useful idiots.
Yeah,
we call them useful idiots.
Useful idiots, and these people, they just get paid, or they get we'll give you lunch afterwards, and they'll just go and walk and chant whatever they've been told to chant, and they don't know what communism is. Believe me, I know what communism is.
Yeah,
Colombia, we are under a communist government. Mm-hmm. I know what it looks like. Mm-hmm. We live right next to Venezuela. Mm-hmm. I know people from Venezuela. Mm-hmm. I know you do not want communism, and these people don't understand the basics of what that ideology, that virus.
They're told that they're fighting the man.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They're told that they're fighting the man, and they're being used to promote all this communist, globalist, socialist, and Marxist, fill in the blankist. Yeah. And it's so bizarre to me that you tell these people that's what's happening, and they don't want to believe you.
And what's funny too?
I'm the crazy one. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I mean, I've been studying this stuff for I don't know how long now at this.
Yeah.
I mean, you've lived it. Your parents lived it. They're getting away from it. Hopefully they can get away from it, and they won't, end up in some prison, beforehand. I have a friend of mine that works with me that's from Venezuela. He didn't have a front row seat because he left like in the 80s, but he's had what I refer to as a second row seat.
Yeah.
He gets all the information from all his family that's still back in Venezuela. Wow. And I have another coworker who was living in Chile when it went through its, whole uprising and everything. And man, there is nothing good on the other side.
No.
There is not this utopia of everybody's the same and equal this and equal that. And garbage. You have the haves and you have the have-nots. Yeah. That's why there's this attack on the middle class here in the middle, because you can't have that under socialism. Yeah. You can't have that under communism. You can't have that under globalism.
Yeah.
There is no middle class.
No.
That's why you see interest rates get, artificially increased by the Federal Reserve. That's why you see attacks on the family. That's why you have homelessness. That's why you have all of this stuff. Of this stuff. And I can don't get me going, but I'm already going.
Yeah, me too. It's pretty funny because all these people promoting communism, not only the politicians, which they also do it. You see the people that go and parade for communism. They're recording the parade with an iPhone. And then they'll go home and turn on their Apple computer.
Maybe their MacBook.
Yeah, their MacBook, and they're going to go have a nice coffee at Starbucks. And daddy's going to pick them up.
I've seen that meme.
Yeah, in a great, very expensive car. And they live in a big, probably 2-story house. But no, they're communist. And what scares me the most about this, promotion of left-wing ideals is that most of these people are young people. We've seen it for a long time. All the revolutionary people, they're young because it's part of the I don't know, the teen.
They're susceptible.
Yeah,
They're susceptible.
They're susceptible, and they want to be rebels without a cause.
Yeah, and that's where you're fighting the man.
Yeah, exactly. But still, you see these people going on into their 30s, in which you start probably becoming more.
And then they become government officials and people at the university.
And you end
at
up
the universities.
Yeah, you end up with
all these
people like
NGOs,
AOC and government.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's what scares me the most, because we've seen the young people. I'm young, thank God. I did not turn out communist.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad. But
well, this is sort of a good segue into kind of our third topic of the day, which is really Colombia. You just spent a month and a half or so down in Colombia. You talked to us earlier saying how your mom's an American, your dad's a Colombian.
Yeah.
What is going on down there?
Oh, I could take a whole day talking about what's going on down there. Things are more complicated than they were. We've never been Switzerland. We've never been America. But it was not that bad.
When was the last time you were there? Before this recent visit?
Winter break. I was there for Christmas.
Okay.
It was bad. Like,
you saw it change that quickly. It was 6 months. Let's say it was 6 months.
Yeah, it's every, like, back in December, it was horrible. It was bad, but it's been getting worse every single day, because the president's not getting the support he wants now from the people. He's very unpopular amongst the Colombian people. And that he's a person that he does not acknowledge, like, I'm doing something wrong. People do not support me anymore. I'm doing something wrong. I must change my ways. No.
So no self-awareness.
No, he has zero.
And he got elected how long ago? This is Gustavo Petro?
Yeah, Gustavo Petro. He got elected in 2022.
And was it a legitimate election? Did the people vote for this guy? Questionable?
Yeah, very questionable.
Okay. He's probably not the first communist.
He's the first one.
He is
Colombia,
the first one.
The first communist president in the history of Colombia. And he's been doing it. He's not even a communist.
Okay.
Because he wears Ferragamo loafers and $1,000 shirts, and he lives in this huge mansion.
Haves, have-nots.
Exactly.
Have.
And he says that he hates the U.S., but drinks Coca-Cola all day and has his Apple computer and all. They say they're communists, but they're more capitalist than us. They love money.
Well, I mean, there's an argument that communists are capitalists. The difference is who controls the capital.
Exactly.
That's really the difference.
Yeah.
If they're controlling the capital, they are, by definition, capitalists.
They are.
But it's certainly totally different picture. So you went there over winter break. You just went back a month and a half ago. You just returned last week, right?
I got here. Last week. Yeah.
Okay.
This week, yeah.
All right. And give us some examples of what was different between December and, let's call it, May when you went back.
Well, December is a time where you don't get the full picture of Colombia, because, of course, it's Christmas, and we are...
So people are on their a little bit better behavior?
People are partying.
Or distracted.
People are distracted. We're having a fun time. Yeah. Everyone. So people are not... You can't really see what's going on, but during the summer, it's normal. So I really could see what's going on down there. I grew up in Colombia. I was there for 18 years, and now every time I go there, after a week, 2 weeks, I just start counting the days to leave.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like we're supposed to be a free country, but you cannot walk in the street wherever you can, because probably you get mugged. You can get robbed. People can come in, like, they can break into your house very easily.
Is that a symptom of poor economic conditions, that people are sort of desperate?
Yeah,
maybe
there's a lot. It's been getting worse every single year since the COVID pandemic.
Okay,
there's 50 million Colombians in Colombia, and 27 million live in poverty.
Oh my gosh,
It's more than half.
over 50%.
Yeah, it's over 50%. So it's complicated. And
What do you know? What actually defines poverty in Colombia? Because I can't imagine it's the same as poverty in America.
no,
right?
it's very
Poverty in America. We've got a refrigerator, we got a cell phone, we
it's
got a
very-
car.
it's
we've got
very-
4 walls and air
exactly.
conditioning.
It's very different. To give you a little bit of a contrast, high class
Okay.
in Colombia is middle class here.
So they've got the Chevys and the Fords, but they don't have the Mercedes per se.
Yeah, the high class in Colombia, they have their Mercedes, they have their BMWs. But if they were to come to live in the United States,
Okay, sorry. Yeah,
they would be more of a middle class,
Okay.
not the high class. And
Okay.
of course, low class in Colombia, which is the bigger part of society. Unfortunately, that's why it doesn't work.
27 million people.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't work. If you want society to work, you want to have the middle class being the bigger one. But these people, most of them don't have, they can't eat 3 times a day. Floor in their houses is made of mud. They don't have jobs. They don't have pretty good health care. Their kids don't go to school. Their kids have to sell stuff in the stoplights in the streets, like bubble gum or something. These people, they don't have access to anything. They don't know how to read. They don't know how to write.
Wow, you're painting a picture of just like survival mode.
Yeah, it's
barely getting
horrible.
barely getting by.
Yeah, it's
Gosh, that's tragic.
yeah, and it's a large part of the Colombian society, and this guy was supposed to be their savior.
Yeah, that's always the case.
Exactly.
That's how social revolutions.
Yeah, and he was.
They're the savior. You know,
Yeah.
the globalists destroy the economy just to bring somebody else in. So they're cooking up the disease and the antidote in the same lab,
Yeah.
is what a friend of mine says. So yeah, they destroy the economy. They bring this guy in, Gustavo Petro. He's supposed to be the savior and
He's a complete.
perpetuating the situation.
Yeah, he's a complete disaster. That's what
So people see him as the false prophet. They see him.
That's
as,
what they used to.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted to be. That's what he wants to be. Probably.
No, I said the false prophet.
Yeah, he wants to be the. Yeah.
So he's lost the support of the people at this point, and what did you see while you were down there?
Well, there were a couple of protests because he wanted to pass some reforms through Congress. They didn't go through, and of course, he did not acknowledge the decision of Congress. He got mad because you know how they work. They either get what they want or they burn the country down.
My way or the highway.
Yeah, exactly. So he began a couple of protests, but not a lot of people showed up, thankfully. So now he's in a very complicated position because he wants to stay in power. Probably, I don't know if he will stay in power or at least leave one of his, I don't know, puppets.
Goons.
Yeah, one of his goons to stay in power. But he has, it's very complicated. The thing is, he's got the drug money behind him, and that's the biggest
And they're
source of money in Colombia.
Are they happy with what he's been doing?
The drug lords?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the guerrillas saying, no, we're not happy with him, but they're having the time of their life. They're not chasing them. They're not being attacked by the military. They're not being put in jail. Not only the guerrillas, you got the drug lords that live in the cities. You see them driving around in their cars, nothing happens.
Are the drug lords the guerrillas, or is there just an overlap there?
You got the guerrilla groups, which they say they are communist and anti-government, and they are revolutionaries. But that was back in the 60s when they began. And after that, they started dealing with cocaine and marijuana, all types of drugs. And now they're the biggest drug lords in the world, the Colombian guerrilla, Colombian guerrillas. They're the biggest drug lords in the world. So they say that they have an ideology. No, it's just drug dealing. But you have small drug lords apart from the guerrillas. They're not Pablo Escobar. They're not Miguel Rodriguez, but they're small, but they're having the time of their lives because They're not getting chased. They're not getting caught by the cops. Nothing is happening to them. The people that are just normal people, good people that have a job, have a family, they are the ones that are living scared because they are the ones that have no protection by the law. They have no protection by the government. The ones that are being protected by the government and the law are the ones that are defying and committing crimes against the law and against the Colombian people. So it's upside down.
Sure. What do you see in the next? So he's got another year in power. This guy.
He's got until
and by Colombian
August
Constitution,
2026.
You can't serve more than 4 years.
You can't.
So there's supposed to be a finish line for this guy, but what's happening now? Where's your head?
I believe that for the next years, like things with him are not going to end the day he leaves office in 2026.
Okay.
I believe it's going to go two ways. First one is he changes the Constitution, he breaks the law, and he perpetuates himself as...
So he stays in power.
Yeah, he stays in power.
Option one is he stays in power.
Or he leaves one of his goons in power. They steal the elections just as they did in 2022. Mm-hmm. And he leaves one of his people there.
I thought they just stole elections here in America.
Or the other way is he loses the election and we have a change in government and in administration.
But are there enough people, Thomas? Are there enough people to fix this? Like, would they even possibly have enough votes and have enough people who are willing to serve to right this ship?
Yeah, there are people. Unfortunately, one of those people, Miguel Uribe Turbay, conservative candidate, got shot a couple weeks ago. He was a great prospect, but he's still alive. We have to wait and see if he ends up dead or alive.
Has there been anybody to step into his gap?
There are a lot of people wanting to run for president. Mm-hmm. But still, what I believe is, in the case of the conservative side, the right-wing side of Colombia, mm-hmm. what we should do is unite, because there's a lot of potential candidates from the right wing. A lot. They only have one or two.
Okay.
We have a lot of potential candidates. So everyone is going with one, and then they're going with another. We should find one common person to follow and support, so we can beat him fair and square in the elections. And
do you have any suspicion of people in the quote-unquote conservative camps that are kind of undermining what you just described as a viable option?
Of course, it's been happening for years now. Not only did it happen in the past presidential elections in Colombia, it happens with mayor elections, governor elections. You got a lot of right-wing candidates and just mm-hmm. one from the left. Mm-hmm. And people say, oh, no, they're not going to win. And then they end up winning, and that's when it gets complicated, when you let them get into power.
Crazy.
Because they don't want to let go of it. So
just crazy. Well, we'll have to stick around. We'll have to see where this goes. But a lot of